The meeting of the Rules and Open Government Committee to order. All 4 members are present, and next week we'll have 5 members, I hope. All right, so let's start with the agenda for February 7th. On consent, we have basic items on strategic support, nothing on sections 4, 5, and 6. Section 7.1 deferred. So 8.1, weed abatement report. And that looks like it. Oh, and there's an ad sheet. There's an ad sheet, so we'll take that when we have a motion. So let's go to public comment.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. You're going to the agenda is going to have an item 2.7 about continuing teleconferencing and public meetings during our COVID era. I just wanted to comment that thank you that you are going to continue to allow the hybrid meeting process and that it's serving a pretty interesting, important function for ourselves. I know that there can be a hardline position that we need to return to our basic practices before the era of COVID as much as possible. It seems like the county of Santa Clara is following that hardline tradition right now. They are suspending, I think, some of their hybrid meetings for, say, board and commission meetings and such. I don't think that's a good route to go. And, Santa Clara County was supposed to be one of our leaders in how to talk about the future of our lives with COVID. And they've taken a hardline position, a conservative position, saying that their budget issues are at stake. So they can't support the hybrid meeting process. I think they can and they need to. A lot of people need the hybrid meeting process. It's difficult for them to attend meetings, and there is such a threat of COVID around that it just makes the process so much easier and helpful for people to have the meeting process, the hybrid meeting process, and that it does offer a better degree of public openness and accountability and accessibility that I've been pretty impressed with. And that helps me attend meetings. Even as I've moved down to San Diego, I can still attend San Jose meetings and be a part of the process, which in and of itself is incredibly awesome. And I just think we should consider how to respect these sort of concepts as we move forward into a new era post-COVID. Thank you.
Caller with last 4 digits, 9157.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. I wasn't going to speak, but I'd like to back up what Blair just said. Interestingly enough, I am taking a conservative position because I am a conservative, and I don't think it's conservative to cut off hybrid meetings. In fact, I think it is the opposite of being a conservative. It is the people and not the government that should be ruling. So I am all in favor of hybrid meetings. I would posit that this is potentially grounds for some kind of ADA complaint, because there are lots of people who are autoimmune compromised who still cannot go into buildings. And I, for one, am not willing to risk dying to come into a meeting to give 2 minutes of public testimony. So I encourage you to do this. We've also had folks calling in, janitors, for example, saying, I've got 15 minutes. I'm on the line to make this comment. I'm at work. I've got to get back to work. So please continue the hybrid meetings. It is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Paul Soto.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I want to talk about the commemoration for Mr. Alexander that passed away recently and the wording. I was born in that year. When those men raised their fists and removed their shoes at the 1968 Olympics, I was 2 months old here in the city. And the racist policies that stripped them of the gold, stripped them of their ability to to not only to not only rightfully accept the honor of what it is that they did for this country, which is bring it to gold and bronze and bring honor to San Jose State University because they were students there. There was no place for them to live. There was no place for them to feel like San Jose was home. And that's why we had the Good Brothers home. So the language that's being used does not articulate that. And it's still this mentality of racism that is endemic in the thought processes of San Jose. Here's the example that I'm going to give to support that, is that when you're reading that commemoration language, you're using words like trailblazer. That's not a word that a African American would use to describe one of their own. So what I'm suggesting is that you can please consult with the Black Kitchen Cabinet or Jamal Williams, or have someone. I think this would be honorable. If you want to honor Mr. Alexander and what he did for the African city, well, then I think it would be honorable if you allow Jamal Williams or somebody within the San Jose State community to write that commemoration, because these are legal documents. These are legal documents. And they are documents that researchers will consult in the future.
Back to the committee.
All right, thank you. And just to clarify, we will be continuing to meet hybrid going forward for all of our council meetings. That's correct? Right, yes.
Yes, this is Tony Tabor.
The intention is for public to be hybrid going forward, but the council will no longer be hybrid, but everyone will be coming in person as a council member. Just want to make sure that's clear. Okay, Councilmember Foley.
Thank you. I just had a question about the agenda for February 7th. There really isn't much on it. It looks like I'm not going to say that because it's surely going to jinx it, but it looks like a really short meeting. So I'm wondering if these items can be held over to another council meeting and the meeting canceled for the 7th? And if that's possible, should I make the motion?
Second.
Hi, this is Tony Tabor, City Clerk, speaking to you from my office. We do have the mayor appointments for the committees. So I think we would like that to go, or the mayor's office can speak to that if they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to have a brief meeting and not have the agenda have any more items on the 14th, but that's, I mean, I'm not totally wedded up to that. And I think we probably would want to have closed session anyway on both days, right? On the 14th. Right, so we need to have a closed session next week to make sure we
So we'll
don't
have,
carry too much over.
well, okay, but closed session is different
Yes.
from the council meeting. So you're suggesting because of the appointments that it might not be a good idea to delay the appointments until the following week? Is that Lee?
I'll let the clerk speak to the appointments. I'm not sure what committees we have in place besides Rules Committee between the 7th and the 14th, so I would ask her to speak to that. As far as the consent items and item 8.1, everything can be renoticed to the following week or on the 28th as we manage those agendas, however.
I don't think there's anything other than rules meeting, but the consent, I'm looking back at the agenda, the consent calendar item 2.7, extending the AB 361, that has to be done every 30 days. I don't know when the last time we did that. So I need to check with, the agendas to see if we can postpone 2.7 1 week.
Because that's just a consent item, isn't it?
It is.
So it could be
It is,
easily.
but the state requires us to adopt that every 30 days.
No, I understand, but there's no, there's no debate about it the following
Right.
week. It's just a consent item that
It may have,
wouldn't
it may be-
generate any additional debate amongst the council.
It
I
just may be
wouldn't think.
time sensitive, that's the only thing.
Right, yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm
I mean,
saying.
we need to check with that.
If
I-
2.7 is the only item, we could notice the meeting for 11 just to do 2.7 so that we did it right after closed session. And only do 2.7.
Well, 2.7,
Next week you're
I would say,
talking
too,
about?
Yeah,
if we're
for
gonna do
next-
that, we
for
might
next
as well
week.
have the appointment item too.
Yes, we're gonna,
But those only those two, although,
okay, but hey, that's an idea. What if we move, because we'll be in closed session, what if we then moved the meeting on the 7th to 11 o'clock and take into, and then we can talk about the committee assignments and be done by lunchtime?
I like that.
I will modify my motion thusly.
So that's to retain the meeting, but begin it at 11
11.
or 11 a.m.?
You don't
just,
wanna-
you want to
Just for
leave it?
2.7 in the ad sheet, right?
Not 2.8 and 2.9?
2.7 in the ad sheet? Yeah, I'm fine with that.
That way, everything else can be renoticed to
Yeah, it's
another,
one, it's
is
just a couple.
deferred.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Do you agree? Yeah. Sergio? Yeah. Sorry, Councilmember Jimenez.
Thank you.
Sorry, trying to give you the respect you deserve.
Yeah, I'm cool.
Listen to us.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I was going to only suggest that we might as well keep 2.9 as well. It's just the other consent item, and then
And the ad sheet.
and the ad sheet, which is, and then remove, all we're deferring really is 8.1. At that point, to another week, whenever it's the
But we're
right.
starting early, so we're.
Right,
in
no, I
the-
understand, but we're
Yeah.
only, we're not really deferring much for future councils to be loaded up.
Right.
Okay, so there's a motion to start the meeting on February 7th at 11 a.m. and to defer items 2.8 and 7 and 8.1.
Yes, that's right.
All right, and there was a second I heard from.
Yep.
Okay, all right, so let's move to a vote.
We're being efficient in our timing of meetings.
Vote is unanimous.
Making. All right, let's move.
Yes, will you report that to Chappie?
Let's move on to the agenda for February 14th.
Okay.
No, so, yes.
So I'll note that later on in the agenda for consent, you are approving the first priority setting session meeting, which is to take place on Tuesday, the 14th at 11 a.m. Our goal would be to stop before 1 o'clock, give the council a break, and then start the main agenda at 1:30.
Right, so that won't be part of this motion. That'll be a separate item on the agenda today. All right, so we're up to consent. We have 11 items on consent, pages 6 and 7.
Can we go back and, Nora, do we want closed session to start at 9 that day?
That's up to the council. We have three, right now, three smaller matters, workers' comp claims, and one litigation matter.
So we could wait until next week to see if something else comes up? Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, section 3, we have mid-year budget review report, the RFP for citywide security guard services. In section 5, transportation, program management support for the airport, DOT infrastructure investments. Nothing in section 6. Section 7, item 7.1 being deferred. Section 8.1, annual action plan for COVID aid. And then it looks like land use, there's one consent item, and then all of the other items are being deferred. Is that right?
That is true, and the land use item is noticed to be heard immediately after the consent agenda, so you don't have a night meeting. So being that the afternoon session doesn't go into.
Okay, so the afternoon session doesn't run into Valentine's Day. All right, so we'll go to public comment.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I wanted to speak on items 2.9, and you have an item that's going to be deferred until March, digital equity issues. 2.9 is an item about the future of trail things, how to create a river trail patrol program or to enhance it, improve upon it. You have a couple new council persons coming in. I think one of them has really mentioned the importance of how they want to involve the future of technology a lot more in neighborhood public safety issues. It's my personal feeling we already have a ton of technology already placed in our local neighborhoods. We're at the point where we now need to be more open and accountable in how to describe exactly what technology we do have placed in our streetlight poles and our local corner, neighborhoods, and the ALPR use involved. All these things we do not know how to talk about openly, simply put. And we have to really make efforts in this new accountable administration of Mayor Mahan to make this clear to the public. It has to be an open process. And with that comes more responsible practices. For this upcoming trail item that I think you're going to talk about technology issues for it, really look to the city of Davis. I've mentioned it several times throughout the years that they did tech ordinance, surveillance and tech ordinance things for their wildlife trails that has just been a real model for other local cities to really practice what are open, responsible, accountable practices and how to talk about technology with their community and how it can be, an understandable process and a shared process. That's how you build the future of peace and democracy. Thank you.
Paul Soto.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I'm glad that Blair brought up the issue of digital equity because there's a couple of we have to kind of like parse that. All COVID did not do anything to the Chicano community and the Mexicano community, which by yesterday's statistics would comprise 85% of the Latino community, Mexicans. And a portion of that are Chicanos. And Chicanos are defined by the offspring of the sons and daughters of campesinos. So that's point number one. And what I mean to say by saying that is that COVID highlighted the inequities that were already there. We know that. My community sure knew that, and the city of San Jose knew that. But the city of San Jose was embarrassed into confronting that because the city of San Jose was not going to confront that on its own. However, now that we're here, let's talk about institutionalizing what it is digital equity looks like. What it looks like for me, it has everything to do with these meetings, not associating it with COVID issues. Don't do that to my community. You owe us that. You owe us, and you know that you owe us. And the people are the ones that are going to have to drive the lawsuit.
Back to the committee.
Okay, any comments from anyone on this agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
I do have a question, actually. I have a question for Tony.
You've already voted.
No, I didn't even.
Wait a minute.
that went
None
quick.
of us voted. Only you voted.
We'll bring the vote up in a second again. I have a question for, maybe Tony can answer this. I was just having a thought about, for future meetings, and this doesn't necessarily pertain to the 14th, how about limiting the number of commendations we do at meetings so that we only have up to 2 so that we don't sometimes overload some meetings and with that at the beginning. Is that something we have to do? We have to do through rules, or just the mayor's office has discretion?
The mayor's office has discretion. They have the mayor's ceremonial guidelines. And there are time limits in the guidelines that we have been lax about following as well. But that is mayor's office guidelines for ceremonial items.
Okay, thank you. And I'll apologize for my 2 going over time, but I've only done 3 in my entire time on council, so I was using up my other time from last year. Okay,
It's not a
now we
ballot.
can move to a vote.
It's not a ballot.
Vote is
All
unanimous.
right, that passes 4-0. So now we're up to the consent for today's rules meeting. So we'll go to public comment.
Can I ask a question? So in the motion, was it included that the evening session would be canceled?
You have to make it clear.
I think that's already was already in the agenda that there was, oh. Okay,
No,
yeah,
we-
then it is in the,
Okay, thank you.
well, there was no items on it, so it's by. Okay, now on to consent, public comment.
Blair Beekman,
Hi, Blair Beekman here. The consent calendar's got a number of items, including public record things, and I guess the study session things. To speak on the public record, there's mental health issues involved with that, and how kids can get involved with mental health things. How can they ask about mental health things? A really good meeting yesterday where you invited a lot of the community came out to describe their feelings about the future of what will be the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. It was nice to see that, a real open process. There were young people were there describing their experiences. It was really a good meeting yesterday. Thank you. And I think a lot of what was being asked for was how can we ask for mental health concerns and to get help. So good luck. That seems an important point for the next 4 years, the next 2 years, to consider those items in San Jose, to make mental health a more accessible process for ourselves. Good luck how we do that together. Thank you. To mention the study session items, to begin with, you had 2 special council meetings in the past few weeks about electing a council person. Special council meetings need to have an open forum at the end of the meeting. Study sessions do not have to have an open forum at the end of the meeting. That needs to be clear, because you didn't offer open forum at the end of the special council meetings of the last few weeks. Just to make that clear, you're going to be talking about technology issues in your upcoming study sessions. And boy, you know my feelings, how important openness and accountability is, and all the work you're going to be doing with the future of tech. Really good luck how to make that a regular part of your tech questions. Thank you.
back to the committee.
All right, I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, ready to vote? All right, consent calendar passes 4-0. So now we're on to open forum.
Paul Soto,
Yeah, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Yesterday was a reflection of the children who are the offspring of the campesinos and the Mexicanos and the Chicano community that have been exploited. These are the symptoms, the kinds of conditions and the issues that you saw with these children and the need that exists in my community are reflections of the racist policies and the genocide that was going on over there on the east side. And I define genocide in the same way that Martin Luther King did. And he said that when you say that I'm not good enough to live next to you, when you say that I'm not good enough to go to school with you, when you say that I'm not good enough to have a job sitting next to you, you are saying directly or indirectly that I do not deserve to exist. This is the definition of genocide, end quote. He gave that at Stanford University, April 3rd of 1967 in this county. So it was apt and appropriate that he spoke in such terms in this county. So I don't really want to hear what you have to say about equity. I don't want, especially anybody on this committee, I don't want any of your definitions of what equity is, because you don't understand. You really don't get it. You really don't get it. It's going to, the only way that you're going to get it is if lawsuits are filed on this city, because you will not move unless a courtroom forces you. That's what you're about, force. That's it. That's all you understand is force. Using it on the citizens or using it to get your point across. And you'll use the police department to do it. We're sick of it. It's not going to happen anymore. We're certainly not going to tolerate it. And I think I've shown you that there are people in this government, in the highest levels, that support what I'm doing. So I want real racial equity, and I want.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the words of Paul Soto. Yeah, I need to discuss the future of digital equity issues, as well. Digital equity is to me, Paul has been talking about this recently, actually, and it's brought up for me, the importance of, there's a series of things that as we're starting off again with new council persons and a mayor, that I have to kind of start over, that I think is fairly well known where I'm coming from, but to really make clear that, the bridging the future of the digital divide issues and digital equity, it's not just giving the kids the tools to learn. It's what are we teaching them to learn? And I think what we have to teach them to learn is how all that digital hardware is being placed in their communities. I mean, I think that's a real question for people. People are really upset about all the 4 and 5G that's being automatically dumped into their neighborhoods without much question. And I'm doing the work where we can ask those questions, where we can be allowed to ask those questions. And it can be a two-way street, a negotiated process to build the future of community digital equity. And that has to be respected. That's how you build a future. And that's what we have to teach our children, that you just don't dump in a ton of technology. It's a negotiated process. And it's a process, that makes sure people aren't harmed, basically. So that's the kind of things you teach your children. And that's the stuff I work on, that they need to learn. Openness and accountability practices are incredibly important to our future. And I want to really work on that, and that to be really understood by new council persons, that it's not just the tech, it's the accountable practices in placing the tech in communities and doing it responsibly and minimally. That's the responsibility of innovation in the future. Thank you.
Caller last 4 digits 9157.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. I'm a little concerned. I'm hearing the words demand and you don't get it, and we're not going to tolerate this again. Those phrases are kind of intimidating, and I hope that you do not let callers start using those phrases when other callers call in and express an opinion. And then we hear things like, we're not going to tolerate this and you don't get it, et cetera, et cetera. So not real happy with the way things seem to be going again at Rules with certain comments. And I hope that you will go back to an environment where people feel safe expressing an opinion, especially an opposing opinion. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
All right, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.